I will go get on my laptop.
So yeah, good morning. 7 o'clock. This is our Deschutes County Legislative Update, 7 a.m. Friday, May 9th, 2025. Welcome everyone. This is Deschutes County's, as I say, legislative discussion weekly during this legislative session. So with that, are any commissioner updates? And as I say, we'll get going, see how many, there's 16 people on right now. Commissioner Dare, anything on the legislative front? Sounds like you might have been transferring devices or something. Okay, and then
Yeah.
Commissioner Chang.
I don't see Commissioner Chang yet.
Yep. Okay. Well, so yeah, I was able to sit down with Doug Riggs just for a few minutes. I was in Salem on Tuesday and Wednesday. Yeah, Tuesday afternoon and Wednesday. Doug and I were able to meet, just kind of catching up. As I say, for right now, it just feels kind of like that trough right before the revenue report for the legislature. Bills are starting to gel. Testifying, I'll be able to testify this afternoon, it looks like, in front of Ways and Means about capital construction. Commissioner Dare, just in passing just moments ago as we were turning on the camera, sounds like she's going to maybe testify this afternoon also. Yeah, with that, as I say, are there any other commissioner comments? Seeing none, yeah, let's step in. Doug, thank you very much for joining us. We're ready to go right at 7:01 this morning.
Good morning, bright and early on a Friday. Good to see all of you. Well, we're 7 weeks out, so we're on the downhill slide, headed towards the end of the session. The big issue is, as Commissioner DeBone mentioned, is the revenue forecast. That is scheduled for the 14th, so next week. It will tell us, and it will tell budget writers how much money they have to spend or not spend, as the case may be. And anticipation is growing, and uncertainty is on a rise. There's a lot of speculation about what may or may not be in the revenue forecast. I would say that most of that speculation in previous years has been wrong. The general sentiment prior to revenue forecasts for the last several years has been that they'd all be down and the sky was falling, the end of the world is near. That may be true this time. The revenue forecast may actually be down, but we'll have to wait and see. That will determine how much money they allocate to subcommittees on Ways and Means, and then those subcommittees will move ahead with drafting budgets in areas like education and healthcare, human services, transportation, etc. Capital Construction Subcommittee meets today for its public hearing on bonding, lottery bonding. So that'll be a cattle call with people given 2 minutes apiece to come in and pitch on their projects. The Core 3 folks are going to come in. I think you guys have a short presentation because the committee has heard from Core 3 before. Many of our local cities in Deschutes County also plan to testify. I know Redmond's among those testifying in support of particular projects. And there will be several hundred written submissions of testimony as well.
So Doug,
yeah, go ahead.
Question. So it looks like Holly Harris says she's scheduled to testify for child psych facility. Do you have a feel for, yeah, are people going to be able to get in there testifying remotely, or is it going to be pretty much everybody in the room and fill it? Because there'll be a lot of motivation to get a moment in front of the committee this afternoon.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner. Good question. I will say that the ability to testify remotely has been wonderful because it kind of thins the herd a little bit as far as the numbers of people who will actually be in the Capitol. Having said that, for the other 2 public hearings they've had so far on the other main bills, the rooms have been packed, and so they typically have hearing room F today at 1 o'clock will be the main room. Folks who don't get in there will be probably put in one of the other hearing rooms, C or D, next door, or E, and then they'll call you up ahead of time. So I am getting there about 12:15 today just to watch. I'm not testifying, but I'd recommend logging on a few minutes early and or showing up a few minutes early. And I see Holly has her hand up.
Yeah, I received 2 emails actually from the committee assistant saying that it's pretty unlikely that any virtual testimony would be gotten to today, given how many people, I think 250 signed up to testify. And I guess there's a number of them in person. So she just said it was unlikely that they may actually have another hearing for the people who signed up virtually to do it. I don't have the date, May 16th. Would be the second hearing to be able to hear that. So I'm going to log on. I'll be available. I doubt we'll be gotten to. I'll submit written testimony, and then I'll hopefully be able to do it on the 16th.
Yeah, thanks, Holly. I hadn't heard that number. It was 175 the last time I heard a day ago. So lots of people signing up, and because there's lots of demand and interest in state funding. So that'll happen today. The other thing that happens today is it's a deadline for committees for the second chamber deadline. So if a House bill is moved to the Senate, it must now be posted for a work session by the end of today. If a Senate bill is moved to the House, same thing. Of course, there are a couple exceptions. Revenue and Finance continue. But those cover other committees like the Joint Committee on Transportation. Chris on the line, and one thing I note is that we keep waiting to see a package for transportation, and it continues to not be released. So rumor is that potentially next week it will include some accountability measures, we're told, but so far it's been quite a holdup. Part of that may have been that Senator Aaron Woods, a Democrat, passed away 3 weeks ago. That left the Democrats without a supermajority in the Senate. That seat has now been filled. Representative Courtney Neron from Tualatin has been appointed to that seat. But that creates a lack of a supermajority in the House. And until they appoint a replacement in the House, there isn't a supermajority. And of course, transportation taxes would be a tax increase requiring a supermajority vote. So we'll see what happens on that. But lots of speculation, but no details on when that package might come out.
Yeah, I could
but-
add a
Go ahead.
little bit to that. There was some pretty in-depth discussion at the Oregon Transportation Commission yesterday of what's going on with the transportation package. There is an alternative framework that has been put out by just, if I'm understanding correctly, just House Republicans, not a bicameral Republican caucus group, but it calls for very substantial cuts, basically eliminates public transit, eliminates active transportation, eliminates Connect Oregon grants that our area commissions on transportation have been very involved in the past, eliminates EV charging infrastructure. They also tried to, they were trying to accomplish a certain amount of cuts, and budget reduction. And there were some significant errors that were made in the package that they put together. For example, they said they thought they could rent out space in the building of ODOT Salem building and make $50 million, and more realistic estimates from realtors have put it more like maybe $2 million over a couple of years. So I think part of the stickiness around a transportation package is the emergence of this alternative and all the partisan drama that's going to go on around it.
Yeah, I've heard similar things. Thanks, Commissioner. That's helpful.
Can I ask just a clarifying question? Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
When you say eliminate public transportation, I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean a department that's overseeing it, or does that mean eliminating actual means of public transportation? I just wanted to clarify.
Zeroing out the money that is being currently expended on public transportation through state funding mechanisms, which
Okay.
Public transit in, for example, Cascades East Transit, this funding that comes through the state through the payroll tax is bedrock funding for Cascades East Transit to function.
Okay.
So other bills coming up this week, I think we're going to talk about House Bill 3069 here in a few minutes. A lot of the behavioral health bills, Senate Bill 610 moved out of the committee on Wednesday. So there is quite a bit of action. The pace will accelerate, especially the pace in Ways and Means, and we'll keep you posted. But our after today's deadline, hopefully OLS will update its system so we can tell you what's alive and what's not alive. Had a little trouble with OLS in that situation last time. It took them a few days to adjust, but we'll try to adjust that and get a new list out to folks here next week. But we continue to work with our delegation, who've been very helpful, and look forward to the next few weeks and getting some good things done. So I think that's all I have.
Great, thank you so much. So Jen, we have a bill list to look at today? Any big changes?
We do, just one change on the bill list. It's listed on page 7 and page 9, which is under the district attorney and finance. This is Bill 3962. So the commissioners haven't directly talked about HB 3962. However, it's the replacement bill for HB 3556, which was the TLT bill that we discussed and that the commissioners had a roundtable with our agency and city partners back in February. So there's an update with this bill, and District Attorney Gunnels and Robert are online to talk about that. I see Doug has his hand raised.
Sure. Yeah, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick update. The bill came up for a hearing yesterday afternoon. There were a ton of witnesses on both sides. Many city witnesses and several county witnesses as well in support of flexibility. And of course, the usual crowd of the Visitor Bureau, Chamber, Orla folks testifying against it. I thought the testimony from especially the smaller cities was very persuasive as far as the struggles they're having with tourism. So we'll see where it goes. Lots of interest. Big issue. The chair at the beginning seemed to indicate that or suggest that she might want to convene a work group or a table of both sides. She really challenged Orla to step up to the plate and be willing to be flexible and negotiate. I don't know if that's going to happen, but it was a good hearing and a good starting point on discussion of this issue.
Thank you very much. DA Gunnels, any thoughts on that?
As far as I can tell, it's a very simple bill. It just directs the legislative revenue officer to study local taxation issues, which I guess is a roundabout way of saying try to figure out how those tourism taxes can be used to fund local governments in a way that isn't going to adversely affect the tourism industry. And so if that can be figured out, I would be supportive of it. I don't want to be in a position where my office, at least, is competing for dollars that the tourism industry needs to do their work. So
great, thank you. So yeah, as commissioners, have each of us kind of gotten involved with that. Yeah, Robert, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, I just want to add on, DA Gunnels, there's a -2 amendment. I don't know if you saw that one. And that's what pulls in the language from 3556 that expands the definition of allowable uses for this funding. And it expands it. And so you can now use it for, this is where it pulls in public safety and community infrastructure. So that's that expanding, language that would allow us to more freely, spend those dollars. I just want to point out, as Doug mentioned, the speakers yesterday, City of Bend Mayor Keebler spoke in favor of the bill as well. And it was interesting, the only one that I caught that was opposed to it was city or county, was Mayor of Coos Bay. And so that was the only mayor that I heard against it. And so I found that interesting, but otherwise, as Doug mentioned, all the counties that spoke, all the cities were all in favor of it. So they see our point. One last point that I just want to make that I never heard anyone talking about, the DMOs, again, there are a number of marketing organizations, Visitors Association, don't take money away from us. You know, we need to continue to promote it. And I think we all agree that is true. No one made the point that, for example, for us, back in 2017, we were giving Visit Central Oregon $1.2 million, and it went up to 1.9. Now we're giving them up to $3.2 million. So we're not talking about taking away all their money, but at one point, is there a cap? How much is too much? And one thing we've talked about here, even when we met with VCO, when they were talking about money with Sun Rivers, I think it was Tom Lachey,
Lachey.
was saying, you know, $2 million is enough. You know, they shouldn't be spending more than $2 million. So, you know, and I don't know what a magic number is, but we're not talking about taking away all money from VCO, but there is a thing, all new tax, and a couple of the county or cities that didn't implement tax before the 2014 or 2013 tax law, whichever year that was, they are limited to 70-30, and they did talk about, you know, if we implement a new tax, 70% goes to marketing and tourism, and only 30% goes to general funding. So it is a hindrance to them.
Thank you. Commissioner Chang.
Okay, I've heard it described that this is a steady bill. I also heard it described that this bill expands allowable uses. So that would be on existing TLT until we get some clarity and there's discussion about what would new TLT, what kind of allocation we have with new TLT, or the things I'm sort of struggling with are I'm still curious about the new increments, right? If we were to add 1%, who would get what percentage? Okay, as I'm talking about this, maybe someone can confirm for me that this is correct. So right now we could probably still add the community could add 1%, but it would be under old allocation. But you would be able to use that 30% for a broader range of things. Is that basically what this bill would do? Or what the status is until this bill is until the study is completed?
If I may, my understanding is the bill, it expands the definition of tourism facilities. And so it enables us to, right now, our allocated portion that only goes to VCO, it would allow us to continue to give it to tourism marketing, but it would also allow us to use those same dollars we give to VCO to public safety or infrastructure related projects. And
so it would be cutting into their 70%.
Out of that 70%, it expands the definition. So we just don't have to give it to tourism marketing. It could be tourism related facilities or public safety, for tourism as well.
And the idea that we came up with of, what about us tinkering only with future, or future increments that we're adding, that idea is nowhere in this new discussion.
Yeah, I haven't heard that, no one testified to that fact, but
yeah, Commissioner, there's nothing in this bill that would prohibit the jurisdiction from making that decision. So it would be left to the discretion of the jurisdiction, just like the rate and the imposition of the tax initially is up to the jurisdiction to make a decision. So it just gives added flexibility for those or areas that would like to have more flexibility to be able to use those funds more flexibly. So you could use funds more flexibly for your existing rate or on a new rate going forward, and that would be entirely up to the jurisdiction. It's not a mandate, it's an option as written. And this is the first draft of the bill. proposal. So there may be changes, but at least in the -2, it's giving flexibility for jurisdictions to make that decision. And I think one of the things that has really been lost in this discussion is that the organizations that have been given the authority to make a decision on taxing in the first place are cities and counties. And so they are the representatives of the taxpayers elected by the people to make the decisions on what taxes folks might pay in their jurisdictions. And that's been completely lost. This is not a tax provision that was granted to Orla or to a visitors bureau. It was not something they said, hey, visitors bureau, you can tax people. That's not responsive to the people. The statute allows elected representatives to make decisions on imposition of these fees. And that has kind of been lost in the discussion.
So, Jen, House Bill 3556, what position did we take on that?
That was, I'll have to go back and look, 'cause I don't have my notes in
okay.
front of me, but I'm pretty
Yep.
sure it was, to support with amendments, and the county the VOCC did submit a letter requesting that applied to only new taxes.
Yep, for the next
And I
step.
did drop in the -2 into the chat, and on page 2, you can see that it specifically applies for taxes from 2003 going forward for the -2 amendment.
So that's the whole thing, basically, because anything before that didn't have those requirements. Commissioner Chang, did you have something else?
Following what Doug said, do cities and counties have the authority to eliminate TLT? I mean, you know, could we go back to one of the percentages that we were already charging and just say, yep, we're scratching that?
Yeah, by a vote of the body, you can alter the rate. You could eliminate the rate. You could put the tax on hold for some period of time if you thought that it was too high or that it needed to be modified. So that's, you know, I'm not the county attorney, and I think we want to, you know, get a legal opinion on that. But that's it's the rate, and the imposition of the rate is left up to the local jurisdiction. And that came out during the hearing yesterday. Several, you know, Seaside, I think, was one of the cities that said, hey, we don't have enough money to pay for the police for all the conferences that come into the convention center. And the only way that we can raise additional money is to raise the rates. And since we can only take 30% of the rate for non-marketing activities, we have to increase the rate by more than we would like to increase it by to get to the amount of money we need to pay for those police officers to be able to have public safety during those large conferences when the convention center is full. And so this gives flexibility. So you wouldn't have to increase the rate as much, but still be able to pay for those, say, public safety costs or additional public infrastructure costs, housing or bathrooms or things of that nature that would be important.
So if local governments wanted to play super hardball with the industry, they could actually threaten to eliminate increments. You know, we're charging 8%, let's go back to 6%. I mean, that wouldn't be favorable for us because we are getting, you know, a pretty healthy percentage from the, you know, from the percentages that are of tax that are being charged. But, you know, some of these, you can imagine a city that wasn't really a tourism destination before that, whose all their increments of tax are now at the more unfavorable rate, saying, look, why would we want you to get so much money to continue to promote tourism when it's killing us? We're going to take away your tourism promotion money so that we don't have to deal with the costs of serving those tourists anymore.
I suppose that could be an option. Yeah, I haven't heard anyone suggest that yet, but that certainly, I mean, the decision-making authority has been granted to elected local authorities on this fee tax.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the nuclear option, but I mean, in some parts of the state, it sounds like that's really where things are at. That the strain between local governments and the industry is very, very bad. Interesting. Okay.
So Commissioner Dare, following this, you have any thoughts?
No, I had we actually it wasn't discussed at the EDCO board meeting yesterday. I know that at the visitors meeting on, what was that, Tuesday afternoon? Yeah, I think they were really concerned with it. You know, that group has actually added 9 employees, because I love what Robert was saying. They had 1.2 million in 2017, and now they've got 9 employees. So yeah, they just, oh my gosh, they just kept spending more and more and more money in that group. And I appreciate that Tom O'Shea said, really, they could get by with 2 million. I mean, and then when you think what the city of Bend is spending, it's really significant. So, no, the bill yesterday that I would love to bring up is Senate Bill 916. EDCO is incredibly against that bill. There was a couple of bills that they were really worried about, and I actually told the room to please call Jason Croft, because he's one of the voting members. Representative Levy is actually recognizes the dangers of that bill. When I was in Jason's office, I suggested that they let Washington State do it first. They could be the pilot, the guinea pig, and then we could see how it works for Washington State. But listening to the room of commissioners, 75% of our counties are going to be in a horrible position if Senate Bill 916 is passed. So I don't know, Doug, if any more people in the House have changed their standing on that bill.
How about, let's take a position or not on this 3962. Another thought there, Association of, or EOCA, Eastern Oregon Counties Association, put their logo, which we're part of that, on the, I think it was the AOC one pager, showing support for this bill. A lot of legislative ask by jurisdictions. We were asked if we wanted to put our logo on that. Jen, was that from AOC, that one pager that came through?
Yes. And
Okay.
we did not end up putting the logo
Yep.
on. The only response I heard back was from you, Commissioner DeBonne.
Yeah, so as I say, my thought process was, let's not try to be front and center on this. I do celebrate our history of promotion, our regional destination marketing organization, Visit Central Oregon, great group of people. I do come to that same conclusion. When you go from $2 to $4 million, maybe we don't need to do that. So generally, I would conclude support for this. So do we want to take that position? House Bill 3962 to support. Is there Commissioner Chang, Commissioner Dare?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I would also remind us that Visit Bend, Visit Central Oregon are, they've just gone through this whole long process of making, deciding that they were going to make more investments in tourism related facilities that our community wants, out of the money that they're getting. So, that is not the case in a lot of other places around the state. And I think that is a good, they have broadened, their use of those funds. So they're not just using all the funds for tourism promotion and marketing. They are doing, they are essentially investing in certain kinds of community infrastructure that we want, whether it be, upgrading the Tower Theater, or it be helping to build a trail. They are helping out with the community infrastructure that we need. So with the existing 8% that we have, the ratio that we get is already pretty favorable. So I would go back again to saying, I would like more flexibility on future increments that we add, but I don't. I wouldn't support messing with what we, with the current allocation on the current percentages. They're doing good things with that funding, and it would provide an incentive for us to consider another 1% if we could get 60, 70, 80% of that, and use it for a broad range of purposes. Well, I mean, right now, the funds that come directly to us, outside the carve out, is completely flexible. So, you know, I would again just want this to want to be future looking, not trying to fight with Visit Central Oregon and Visit Bend about what they're currently receiving.
Well, and I conclude that, yeah, I'm not in a conflict mode with our DMOs either, but for other jurisdictions around the state, I would conclude that supporting this bill is going to give flexibility for coastal communities, other tourist type jurisdictions that really need some relief. So as I say, I kind of come to that same conclusion, but I don't mind taking a position of support on this bill. As I say, Doug, our lobbyist, is listening to us and understands kind of the tone and tenor of what we're talking about here. Doug, you got your hand raised too.
Well, I would like it to specifically just kind of mirror the position that we took on 3556. You know, we are supportive of this concept, but we like it to only apply to future increments.
So taking that position that we took before is to support. So I think we're all there.
I mean, if we just say, you know, support irregardless, you know, of modifications, it's different than what we said before.
But I'm just thinking of the spreadsheet. What number are we going to position are we going to take on there? Are you saying something different than to support?
Support with amendments.
Okay,
It's
thank
very
you.
different.
Okay, Doug.
Well, I was going to comment on Senate Bill 916. The only thing I'd say about this, commissioners, is that the -2 amendment does allow you as the elected jurisdiction in Deschutes County to make that decision that it would only apply in the future. So what you would be saying is you would be restricting everybody else in every other jurisdiction, regardless of where it is, to only be able to use a future increase in the tax for that flexible purpose. So that's but the existing amendment allows you as the commission to make a decision to not change it at all, to reduce it, to increase it with the existing stipulations, or to increase it and take advantage of the increase for flexibility, or take advantage of the whole tax in this more flexible manner. So there are
Do whatever you want locally.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, but the anxiety that could produce for you know, our local partners, I think that's not necessary, right? The uncertainty that we could go after a portion of, you know, a portion of their share of, you know, past increments. I just, you know, I don't think that's a kind thing to threaten our tourism partners with.
So I'm supportive of to support with the discussion as we've had. Commissioner Adair, are you there too?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, okay. So thank you very much. I mean, I understand that edge right there where, yeah, the local support jurisdiction decision-making could be a little bit uncomfortable, but as I say, I'd get to this conclusion for the support of other jurisdictions is where I'm at right now. So, okay, well, that'll be our position on the spreadsheet, and we'll go from there. Senate Bill 916. Doug was ready to help us with that.
Yeah, Senator, just as a reminder, Senate Bill 916 is the unemployment insurance bill that we've all been talking about for several weeks. This is a bill that extends unemployment insurance benefits to striking public workers. To this point, striking public workers have not been contributing into the unemployment trust fund. Only private employers and employees have contributed into that fund, which I believe is over $5 billion. And in certain cases, they can tap into that fund that they have helped pay for. This bill allows all striking workers, including public employees, so county employees, city employees, special district employees, school district employees, et cetera, to tap into that unemployment fund as well. This would be the first state in the nation to allow striking public workers to receive unemployment benefits. It did pass out of the Senate a few weeks ago, and it is in the House. The interesting thing about the bill is that I would have expected that the votes would have been lined up and they would have moved this bill relatively quickly. The fact that they are here at the deadline, within 2 weeks of a deadline for the bill, and it still has not been scheduled for a work session or a work session held, tells me that they're having trouble rounding up the votes. So it is still one of those controversial bills. It tends to be a party line bill, but I think there are people on both sides who were concerned about it in the Senate, and we'll see where it goes. But it definitely is going to be one of those late session bills. All cities, just about all cities that I know of in counties and special districts and all school districts pretty much are lined up against the bill. So we will see where it goes.
I mean, EDCO had 38 bills that are still in life in Salem, and this was one of the bills. So they were incredibly concerned about it. And I know, to repeat, AOC was too. Generally, it could be incredibly financially impactful to a lot of counties.
So if it's posted by the end of today, that'll be the moment where it gets to a work session in the House, but it may fade away after today also. Commissioner Chang.
Yeah, I'm generally not supportive of this bill, but Doug, I wanted to dig in a little bit to what you were saying at the beginning about so public agencies don't pay into this unemployment insurance trust fund right now.
Yeah, that's correct. The unemployment insurance trust fund that would be tapped in this case in this bill is the one that has been populated by private employers and private employees since the inception of the fund. And I honestly don't know when that was. And I believe I could go back and look, and I'll look it up, but I believe it's approximately $5 billion or maybe slightly more.
And so if this bill passed, would we be required to pay into that unemployment trust fund? Okay. And so
yes. And many counties actually, and cities, and maybe your staff can clarify this, they're more expert than I am on this, but it would be a direct dollar for dollar payment for reimbursement of those rates. I see Jen's got her hand up.
I just looked, there is a work session scheduled for 5/12, a House work session.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so have we taken a position of, or not? Yeah, so opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like us to take an opposed position, but instead of being really antagonistic about it, I think we could just emphasize what Doug was just saying, that, you know, this is an expense that we have not been incurring in the past, paying into the trust fund, and you know, these are very tight times right now, and we just can't afford to do that at this point.
I'd like to take a number one opposed position. Businesses in Oregon, I don't know if you've seen, but we're like at the bottom of the nation. What are we losing? And definitely the feeling in the room, EDCO's position was that bill, we cannot have it pass. So anyhow.
Do we have a position to oppose right now, Jen?
Yeah, it's to oppose.
Doug, any thoughts on that? I mean, what if we took a position one and said, so I mean, if it's been posted, what would that look like from your point of view? What would advocacy look like?
Oh, I do think a posting means that they have to post. So I fully expected it would be posted by the end of the day. So that doesn't surprise me. Whether or not they have the votes yet is a question. And I'd say that our Deschutes County delegation are among those who are thoughtfully trying to consider the impact on this bill, especially on their public entities and their schools. So taking a position either of a 2 oppose or 1 oppose probably doesn't make much of a difference to them. But knowing that the county is opposed to the bill in general, I think it's helpful for us to let them know that.
And I do think the arguments that we make may sway those legislators a little bit, right? And that's again why I'm encouraging. I don't care priority 1, priority 2, but I do think it's important for us to think about what arguments we make. You know, to go to a higher level, you know, I fully believe that that public employees have the right to strike. There's people who try to who try to strip that away from them on a regular basis and try to dilute labor organizing by public employee unions. I don't support any of that. But while I believe that public employees have the right to strike, I don't think that we should have to pay them while they're striking. I think if they are striking without pay, I think it demonstrates how seriously they object to a contract or labor conditions that they're facing or something like that. So that's where I would come from at the high level. And then at the granular level, I think that this budgetary concern that we haven't been paying into this trust fund, and we might have to now, that is we're going into budget week next week, and we know that there's no money to be able to cover these kinds of costs. So, I'm most concerned with how we're going to argue this and how we might sway legislators who are not already opposing this bill.
Well, I support that. Let's pull out a couple bullet points, put it in a paper. I could say stay, opposed number 2 on this. So let's just move on from that, but put a letter together. Whitney.
Thanks, Commissioner. I was just going to flag Cam Sparks in our budget office did some financial analysis about costs specifically to the county if different amendments along the way of this bill were to have been implemented. And so I think if Jen or staff is going to draft a letter, it'd be good to look at that analysis because it is really specific for our employee population and gives some dollar estimates. I haven't been tracking this bill to know if from the -2 to where we are now, that analysis has changed, but certainly I think we could check in with Cam to see if those numbers are still accurate and holding.
Yeah, so I guess, is there support for putting a letter together on this topic since it has been posted also?
Of course.
Good, okay. In support of EDCO.
Commissioner, just one more thing. I did just put in the chat the most recent copy of the AOC testimony from the last public hearing, which has some good points.
Good. So I don't know that we need to take this any farther. I guess we got a feel for this and the motivation to put something on paper and get it into the legislature or our local legislators.
I'll just say that I just laid out the way I would like this to be framed for me to support it, and if it's not framed that way, I won't sign.
That's fine. As I say, let's put something. I'm not opposing anything you said, so let's see if we get something on paper.
Great. All right. I'll start a draft, and I did take notes, Commissioner Chang, on your points here. So I'll start a draft, incorporate what I heard in this conversation. I'll work with Robert and the finance team to get some possible numbers in there. So we'll circulate it internally and then get it hopefully to the commissioners by end of day today. The test, I don't think that we can submit testimony directly to a work session. Correct me if I'm wrong, Doug. No, okay. But we can email it in to our legislation and the committee on the work session. So we'll work to get a draft circulated by hopefully COB today to the commissioners for review.
And the AOC testimony talks about the counties have estimated that the financial impact of reimbursement to the state unemployment fund, dollar for dollar, if striking workers receive UI benefits as followed. Large population, $850,000 to $1 million a week. Medium population counties, $100,000 to $300,000 per week. Small population counties, $10,000 to $20,000 per week. So that's to reimburse the unemployment fund. So that's big money.
Well, yeah, just for context, I believe at one point Cam's analysis was for Deschutes County, it would be about $458,000 a week. So right in that range.
We're right on the high side of the medium or the small side of the large county, right where we know we're at. Thank you. Okay, so that'll be a little follow up from today's meeting. Anything else, Jen?
I have 2 more things. Just as a reminder, On Monday at the board meeting under other items, myself and DV talked with the commissioners regarding 3069. The letter was sent into the legislative delegation. And then today at 8:30 a.m., we have a call with Rep. Krupp. Davey couldn't be on this call this morning, but DA Gunnels, DV, Holly, I believe Nick, and myself, potentially others will be on that call at 8:30 with Rep. Krupp to talk about 3069 and the amendments we're seeing. I'm not sure if there's anything additional to add following that conversation on Monday, but I'll just pause real quick to see if DA Gunnels has anything else he wants to add ahead of that call.
I did talk to Jason kind of offline about it, and he's open to hearing our feedback. So that'll be a good opportunity for us.
Great, thank you.
Great. And then just one more thing. This is specifically, I believe, for Commissioner Chang and Commissioner DeBonne. It's the Pacific Core alternate routes option. I believe that is due today, or I think it's due tomorrow, which is Saturday. I did hear feedback from Commissioner DeBonne that he's good with the letter that's written. So Commissioner Chang, if you're able to take a look at that letter, I sent it around yesterday. I'm getting my days confused, either Wednesday evening or yesterday morning, first thing around 8:30 a.m. So just waiting to hear your feedback on that and if it's good for signature.
It's due today, I believe, Jen. It's the 9th.
Okay. You're on mute, Commissioner Chang. It looks like you may be talking.
I see it. Sorry,
Okay.
I had a chance to. I was watching for it and I didn't see it come in, but now I just searched it.
Okay, great. So I'll look for your feedback or your okay on the signature there, and we'll try to get that signed and out the door this afternoon at the latest. And that's all I had.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else? I want to thank all the department heads and everybody that's following these topics. Anything else hot these days? Other elected officials?
Doug or anyone else, are you hearing anything more about a wildfire funding package, or are people just waiting for the revenue forecast, which they shouldn't be waiting for because we need new sources of revenue besides general fund?
Yeah, Commissioner, thanks for the question. A package of bills, including Senate Bill 83, Senate Bill 85, et cetera, has moved or is in the process of moving on a Ways and Means. And they are still, I think, at the negotiating table trying to determine what the appropriate funding mechanisms might be for those bills. There's no doubt in my mind that they are going to come up with something. They will not make the same mistake that they made the last time, which is to not leave enough money or provide enough money in the process to be able to pay contractors who do work on wildfires. So I think they're negotiating, and those negotiations are all kind of behind closed doors. So I don't know the details, but I've a lot of confidence that they'll come up with something at the end of the day.
Thanks.
Commissioner Dare.
Yes. Tom Kuhn had his hand up.
Oh yeah, that's fine. Commissioner Tom.
Hello, I just wanted to mention that House Bill 2954, which is the funding bill for substance and addiction prevention, just finally had a work session scheduled for next week, Wednesday, the 14th. We were really concerned it was not going to get a work session scheduled, but somehow it was able to get scheduled, and we're hoping our advocacy efforts with that maybe contributed to that happening. So we're very pleased that that's going forward.
So that's a funding bill, you said?
Yes.
So yeah, it'll be in the mix. Okay, thank you. DA Gunnels.
Thanks. You asked if there are any hot issues. This is not probably something that's on anybody else's radar, but Senate Bill 277 has advanced through the legislature. It's a really big deal for prosecutors in Oregon because it allows us to extradite foreign nationals back to the United States to face prosecution for serious crimes. And we have that fairly regularly And it's a very difficult process in Oregon based on our laws. And this opens up that pathway. It really went through the legislature very easily because I think it's a pretty simple, narrow fix to some restrictions that were placed on prosecutors and sheriffs and making requests for foreign extradition. And it's a big win, and it comes at a very good time for our community.
So that's been passed by the Senate and it's in the House on a scheduled item?
It's going to the governor's office for
Oh, okay,
signature.
signed by both sides. Good, okay.
Stephen, does that have to do with the Canadian that murdered the woman in 23 they've known about since December and they haven't been able to extradite him from Canada? Does it relate to that?
It relates to all extraditions of foreign nationals, and that would be one of the cases that would be affected by it.
Great. Well, thank you for that that note. Moving to the governor's desk. Anything else for this meeting? Seeing none, I think it's going to be 85 and sunny today. First time in about 5 months, we're going to see something above 80 degrees here in Central Oregon. So enjoy the warmth, but yeah, also fuel reduction is the priority right now. This little window right before we shouldn't be burning anymore. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you.